Can startup dental practices even make it during this pandemic? Meet Dr. Jared. He'll tell you his story of how he had his best financial month during the lockdown. Really surprising, right? Especially because so many practice owners are talking about the doom and the gloom and the fear and the chaos. Maybe for them, that's their reality. But for Dr. Jared, you'll hear him describe this incredible story where he says, I didn't need the PPP loans. I didn't need the EIDL loans. I don't need lines of credit. And you'll even hear him say, because my practice is more profitable than it's ever been. Really interesting from a values-based, high-integrity clinician. You'll love his story. You'll hear him talk through the numbers. How did he get to this place where he's doing higher production as a cold scratch startup in his first year during quarantine? It'll inspire you. Enjoy. Please meet Dr. Jared.
When I got the news from the governor that we had to shut down for, I think it was 6 weeks, I was terrified. I didn't know if I'd be able to make it through. And then, yeah, just a couple weeks in, I was like looking at the business account and I'm like, wow, I'm going to be fine. I don't need PPP. I don't need the EIDL. I don't need lines of credit. So yeah, things are going well.
And how now, even last month in the middle of a pandemic, in less than half a year of opening your startup, you had your best financial month ever. Jared is awesome. And it's so great to have you. Listen, one of the things I love about Jared is he's like super mellow and incredibly humble and so like unassuming. And then you see the numbers that Jared produces in his practice, and you see the things that he's willing to do to break out of his comfort zone in terms of being an entrepreneurial leader in his community. And it's like, whoa, there's like a caged lion inside of there. So Jared, I'm thrilled that you get to be here, and thank you for taking some time.
I saw a lot of my colleagues around that were just, they just kind of shut down, didn't answer phones. I think that there's always a way to get through it. And, if you as a dentist can get through this period where you either can't see anyone or you're only seeing emergencies, like you can really get through anything. And it's just all about the attitude and how you approach it. And especially if you kind of get out in your community, those people will come to your aid, and they will. I got so many patients from other business owners during this that it was fantastic. I just think you need to do it. I mean, if practice ownership is what you want, like the lifestyle change that I've seen has been incredible. As it's rewarding in a way that associateship will never be. Like you will never be, as an associate, you will never be recognized in your community. You will never be a pillar of your community. You're just another 9 to 5. And when you own, it's cool to go out places and have people recognize you. And in good ways, instead of like, they know me as a business owner instead of the person who pulled their teeth.
Literally 2 years, you've gone from idea to recognized leader in your community. I mean, Jared, like hats off to you. Awesome work. Less than like 2 years, and what whole new career lined up. Really cool to see.
I just want to say thank you to you and your team and all that you guys do, because really gave me the support and confidence that I needed just to get started.
It is, I can't say this heavily enough, but it is an incredible honor to be doing it side by side with you and seeing what you're accomplishing with your values, your hard work. Many, many good things to come, my friend.
Yeah, it's exciting.
There's 3 things he's going to show you in this interview that you'll love and you'll remember for a very long time. Number 1, he talks about clinical breakthroughs that he has had because of this time. Really surprising. It impressed me to hear his story. You'll hear a story of him taking a phone call while walking on the beach that led him back to his practice at 9 p.m., which led to a great clinical breakthrough that he's been hoping for a very long time, all in his first year as a startup. Secondly, you'll hear how his community has now respected him as a community leader. There are other businesses in his town who are now sending him patients. Now, these are not other specialists or general dentists. These are other business owners who respect Jared so much so in his first year that they're sending him patients. And then thirdly, you'll hear him talk through the numbers. How did he get to this place where he's doing higher production as a cold scratch startup in his first year during quarantine?
Okay, now I am really excited to introduce you to a startup doctor who, in the middle of a pandemic, set a new standard amidst all the doom and gloom in dentistry. There's plenty of people hurting, plenty of practices struggling and scared, and rightfully so. But the doctor who I'm about to introduce you to is going to inspire you with a startup practice story that has reversed the tide with the deck stacked against him. His name is Jared. So Jared, would you please say hello?
Hey, everyone.
Jared is awesome. And it's so great to have you. Listen, one of the things I love about Jared is he's like super mellow and incredibly humble and so like unassuming. And then you see the numbers that Jared produces in his practice, and you see the things that he's willing to do to break out of his comfort zone in terms of being an entrepreneurial leader in his community. And it's like, whoa, there's like a caged lion inside of there. So Jared, I'm thrilled that you get to be here, and thank you for taking some time. My hope for today is for you and me, Jared, to share a little bit, like kind of almost a little behind the curtain about how the deck was stacked against you, and how now even last month in the middle of a pandemic, in less than half a year of opening your startup, you had your best financial month ever. So I want to be able to tell a little bit of that story so people can see like, okay, even when things are hard, there's still a path to create a good story. How does that sound for today? Good plan?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay,
cool. So take us back a little bit. I know it was, 6, 7, 8, 7-ish months ago when something bad happened in your town, like, yay, I'm going to open my startup practice. And then boom, what happened?
Hurricane. I can't remember the name of the hurricane, but yeah, it was coming right for us. They said it was going to destroy everything. It was the one, unfortunately, sat over the Bahamas for a while. And it actually didn't touch us, but we still had to close because we were planning on it hitting us. Mm-hmm. We closed for about a week. And that was probably 2 or 3 weeks after we had opened.
Pretty scary, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had to go and get hurricane shutters because I didn't have any of that. Went and put them up, installed them by myself.
I love it. I love it. And then, so Christmas time came around, but not too long after that. And I just love that even in the midst of like your local economy trying to like get back on its feet and people kind of like shaking off the cobwebs a little bit from the thing that happened with the hurricane just a couple months before, in the middle of all that, you started putting out these messages on social media. I love some of the posts that I saw you make with like the Christmas sweater. I remember the thing with you standing with the Christmas things. You've gone now to a place where you've gone from like not being known at all to rapidly rising in visibility in your community as a values-based leader. Do you mind giving a peek into what that is like? And then we'll talk about some pandemic and some COVID stuff and how you've kind of beaten the odds business-wise against the pandemic. But before we go there, let's talk about Christmas time-ish and you rising through entrepreneurialism and community leadership and visibility. You mind giving a peek into that topic?
So I was terrified of social media, and then had a nice push to do like a giveaway for the 12 days of Christmas, and it kind of got me out into the community more. And I met with some local business owners, local business managers, and kind of worked with them to create Facebook social media posts. And it really kind of separated us, whereas patients coming in, they would say, wow, you know, I've never seen a dentist do posts like this. It's always like some picture of someone biting into an apple that says, make your next appointment. And then they actually get to see me or get to see my team shooting videos that are horribly done, not like well cut, but it's just authentic and people really respond to it. And so at that point, I was reaching out to businesses to try to make the business to business relationship. And now I have, after doing this for, well, a couple of months after Christmas, I have businesses reaching out to me, which is nice.
Tell us like, give us a peek into like, what does it feel like on a personal level to kind of go from almost non-existent? I mean, as a non-practice owner, it's a different level of influence that you have in the community. Now that you're on this stage, which is almost like a platform for your values, a platform for your reputation. It's like a megaphone for who you are as a human to influence and impact your community with the values that you have. What's that felt like on a personal level? Like, what's that been like to go from associate to respected and pursued practice owner? What's that been like?
I mean, it feels incredible because it's, so I you know, you hear a lot that, you know, dentists, we like practice on an island where we have our little practice. We don't really venture outside of it. Maybe we are on a Facebook group with other dentists to like reach out to them. But once kind of breaking out into the community, it makes the whole thing a lot more fun. Like it's a lot more rewarding to kind of have developed friendships with some of the other owners of small businesses in the area. It's really, really changed things, and it's incredibly rewarding.
That's so cool to hear. I always like telling the story of Ben Franklin with his juntas. I don't think I ever told you this, but back in the 1770s, Ben Franklin in Philadelphia, my old hometown, Ben Franklin was, I'll just be undiplomatic about it. I'll just say he was a nobody. Like, he kind of came from nothing. He didn't have the credentials. He didn't have like the pride or the clout. He was just like this kind of nobody, and he opened up a print shop. And one of his claims to fame was, very few people talk about this, he started these things called juntas, which are almost like networking meetings, where he was essentially the coordinator, the leader of these little juntas of business owners who came together. And he ordered, you know, he brought in like the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, and then his little print shop. So it's him and his little buddies there. Well, it was interesting because he went from nobody to print shop owner to junta leader. And that is what actually allowed him to become a person who could rise in values and rise in prominence to the place where he, I don't know if you know, I didn't know this, but he became the first Postmaster General of the United States, like the first leader of all post offices, and then became the first ambassador to any foreign nation on behalf of the United States to France. And then he like helped write and sign the Declaration of Independence. And I believe 100% it's all because it started with entrepreneurialism and community leadership, like values-based community leadership, which is what you're doing. Like, yeah. Oh my gosh, look, you could be looking at the next Postmaster General right here, Jared. Or do you speak French? Maybe ambassador to France, I don't know. So talk us through like some of the, before we talk about the pandemic, we'll fast forward from kind of Christmas to pandemic and talk about how you got through that. But right before that, let's talk about what were your thoughts about practice ownership, or what were your even hesitations about a startup? If you can rewind and take us back to being an associate, do you mind giving us a peek into that world? What was that like for you, wanting to become a practice owner and thinking about a startup, say 2 years ago or a year ago? What was that like?
I mean, in my world, I think being an associate was more stressful than owning. But I mean, I was an associate in a very, very busy corporate environment.
Like a mill, kind of, right?
Yeah. And it was a good experience, but when you see that many patients, you tend to get a lot of upset patients. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of took its toll. And like, I always, like, Sundays were always brutal. Like, I just like, didn't want to go to work on Monday. Like, yeah, that was tough. But, you know, as an associate, my income was very, very steady. Got paid every 2 weeks. So then as I transitioned into ownership, I quit my associateship just flat out, which I don't know if that was a great idea, but it's worked out. But so in the beginning, the financial stress was there because I'd pay myself 1 month, I wouldn't pay myself the next. It was, yeah, it was up and down, but it was just a lot more rewarding. Don't have days where I don't want to go into the office. Like,
yeah, there's no Sunday doldrums, right? We should make up a funny name for that, like Sunday bum day or Sunday awful day. Like, it's not Sunday fun day when you're an associate. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
Here, check this out. So, all right. So if you're watching this as an associate dentist, you're like, oh, I'm riveted. Like, this guy is obviously like Jared, you're like a normal guy who's creating extraordinary, like an ordinary person with extraordinary result, or a humble guy with absolutely mind-blowing results. Look at this. So you didn't know I was going to show this. I hope it's okay with you that I show it. This is receiving something called the Century Award. Jared, I don't know if you know this. We ended up sending out press releases on your behalf related to this. Did you know about that?
Yeah. Yes.
So the Century Award was for. It was awarded to you technically like 3 or 4 months ago, like before this, like maybe around Christmas time. Do you remember what the Century Award is for?
Yeah, it was for the first 100 new patients.
So the first 100 new patients. So you hear about a lot of associate dentists who kind of fumble through a DIY startup, and it could take them a whole year to get 100 patients. I mean, you see some sad stories of people who take forever. You did it very fast. Now let's fast forward all the way to pandemic time, like COVID-19 reality that like put the brakes on dentistry, super scary for a lot of practice owners. And you've completely reset the paradigm. I know that the month prior to COVID, the month prior to the quarantine in your state, you were on track to have your best month ever, right? I mean, you were at that pace, which is amazing in and of itself. And then kaboom, the COVID truck hits, right? So you're on lockdown, you're in quarantine, and how would you describe the end result for the finances during the month of coronavirus? How did that compare?
I'm doing better financially now than I was before.
That's awesome.
Which is when I got the news from the governor that we had to shut down for, I think it was 6 weeks. I was terrified. I didn't know if I'd be able to make it through. And then, just a couple weeks in, I was like looking at the business account and I'm like, wow, I'm going to be fine. I don't need PPP. I don't need the EIDL. I don't need lines of credit. Like, so things are going well.
Oh, so good. So one of the things that I have just admired so much about what you've done is you, in this super unassuming, very ordinary way, you come face to face with these big unsurmountable problems and you just tackle them. Like, you just destroy these things like hurricanes and the fear of practice ownership and startups, and now COVID. And as a business owner, now you're being pursued in your community as not just a practice owner, but a successful businessman in your community. And as you're looking over the last, say, month or so, what have you seen as what are some things that you've done as a startup that have now surprised even you, that maybe you didn't even notice, you didn't even think these things were going to happen, but are there things that you're reflecting on over the last few months or even this last year where you're thinking, oh my gosh, like there's this that happened, or I'm feeling this now? What would you say to that?
I guess I've one very special relationship with a business in my community. It's a guy that owns a gym, and so he's been forced to shut down through COVID. And we became friends before, kind of during some of my Facebook stuff. And he kind of confided in me that before COVID, it wasn't going very well, that he was kind of on the edge. And then he's actually had to close permanently because of this. But he does some really cool marketing things, and he just volunteered to help me with some social media marketing. And then I don't know, I might help him out with some dental work, but I don't even think he needs it. So yeah, he just came out and offered that, which was awesome.
Wow. I've heard from guys like you who are willing to take that bold, courageous step into a startup. Maybe tell me if this resonates with you, that it's surprising that the community will rally for you when you're a practice owner. Like, the town comes around and helps prop you up. Whereas an associate, oftentimes it feels like your income is just sort of binary. It's like on or off. And sometimes you're just like a cog in their wheel. You're either on as a cog or you're off as a cog, and then you're out, right? It's like very binary.
Yes.
Whereas I hear from many people, many associate dentists say, I stepped into this practice ownership thing thinking I was going to be alone. And now I feel like I have like this tribe of people called my community, like propping me up. Has that been the case for you too?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy because in my associateship, I was like, I'm going to miss these relationships because we were in group practice. There were other dentists my age, and we had our little group, and we'd always hang out. And now I've got a bigger group of people that don't just sit around and talk about teeth all day, which is nice.
That's awesome. That's great. What advice would you have for associate dentists who are thinking about practice ownership, and they're hearing all that like doom and gloom in dentistry? They're seeing social media practice owners almost like, it sounds like many of them are like near the end of their rope, and maybe some of them really are, and that's just so sad. But then you hear other stories like yours, and many times I feel like guys like you who are creating these incredible successes, either A, they're too busy to talk about it and they don't have time to go like combat the doom and gloom, or B, I don't know about you, but sometimes it's like I almost feel disrespectful if I'm like talking about my successes over here and there's all these other people like struggling. Does that resonate with you?
Yeah,
what would you say to those associates who are like, I want to be a practice owner, but I hear the doom and gloom, and wait, there's this good news out there? I never knew there was good news happening. What would you say to the people in that, associates in that mindset?
I think it's all in what you make it. I mean, if I kind of thought I would do whatever it took to get through this. And I saw a lot of my colleagues around that were just, they just kind of shut down, didn't answer phones. I think that there's always a way to get through it. And, if you as a dentist can get through this period where you either can't see anyone or you're only seeing emergencies, like you can really get through anything. And it's just all about the attitude and how you approach it. And especially if you kind of get out in your community, those people will come to your aid, and they will. I got so many patients from other business owners during this that it was fantastic. I just think you need to do it. I mean, if practice ownership is what you want, like the lifestyle change that I've seen has been incredible.
That's so cool. Oh, Jared, just super, super proud to see what you're doing and the way you've risen and what you've accomplished. Just incredibly proud to watch all the things you're making happen, and you're making it happen. It's like there wasn't like a cheat code where you just had like the magic potion. Like it wasn't like there was like a super duper cheat code that like there's other practices around you who are actually struggling, and like you said, there's other practices like in your town who have like had to close their doors or disappear or see 0 patients.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I've seen a lot of new practices listed for sale, and it seems to be, the dentist that was borderline retirement, and this has kind of pushed him or her over the edge, and now they're done. I think that that's a big opportunity for people who are willing to put in the effort and just kind of believe in themselves.
Good words. I'm thinking through, yep, there have been some practice owners out there who say, startups in this time, they're only able to grow through getting patients from other dentists. And that is not true at all. Like you said, you're not growing through patients from other dentists. You're growing through patients because of your community leadership, like Ben Franklin style. Like, it's just really cool to see how you're not just another dentist. This is about more than dentistry now. This is about your entrepreneurialism, your leadership in the community, your values from this stage called practice ownership through this megaphone. And it is awesome to see, with or without all the press releases and the publicity and the cool stuff you're doing on social media, with or without all that. Like, kudos to you, my friend. You're working your tail off and you're making it happen. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring to watch. Yeah, so with that, what other like thoughts do you think would be helpful for doctors to hear?
I mean, so I had probably one of the coolest like clinical breakthroughs. So I pride myself on doing a lot of procedures. I'll do fully impacted wisdom teeth, implants, hybrids. I'll do pretty much anything, but I've been terrified of molar endo because in my associateship, a specialist did it. And I knew that I needed to expand my clinical skill into molar endo. And I'd saved all of my extracted molars. And I actually had not a specialist. She was a dentist, general dentist that only does root canal. She'd come into my practice and she would do the molars for me. And during the whole shutdown thing, I had extra time and I sat and I practiced on the extracted molars. And there was, we're not allowed to go on the beach, but there's a path next to the beach that we could walk on. And I was walking one night and it was like 8 o'clock, sun's going down, and I got an emergency phone call. All the phone calls went to my cell phone, so I could always answer. And it was a patient in pain. I told him I could see him the next morning. He said, "No, I need you to see me now." I told him it was a $400 extra charge for me to go in. I saw him at 9 o'clock at night, and it was a molar, and I did my first molar endo.
Yeah.
It took me an hour, and the guy was super happy. He sent me a couple people. Like,
wow. Oh,
that was incredible. That was like, that was a big confidence boost.
Yeah, that is so cool. Oh, that's awesome. I love hearing that. Yeah. And you're not even through your first year yet, and all this cool stuff is happening. Like, you're not even at your 1 year anniversary. That's so cool. What else? Like any other like value bombs to drop? I'm sure doctors listening to this are like riveted and super interested. What else would you say to maybe even think back to yourself? Like, man, if I was an associate considering practice ownership and I'm wondering about a startup, I think I kind of might want to do a startup like this guy I'm watching on the video. What else might you say to that person, even if that was you from a year ago?
I mean, I think there's always going to be some fear. And you always kind of hear people talk about all these, like, if you're going to do a startup, you have to look at all these little things. You have to check all these boxes, and like, try not to get too focused on checking the boxes. Just kind of the sooner you can get into it, and kind of the more, as it's going, the more work that you put into like what you're doing outside of the practice to bring patients in, that's going to benefit you greatly. And those things are, people always say you can either spend the money or you can spend the time. If you just put the time in to kind of going around the community, it will pay off immensely. Like it's rewarding in a way that associateship will never be. Like, you will never be, as an associate, you will never be recognized in your community. You will never be a pillar of your community. You're just another 9 to 5. And when you own, it's cool to go out places and have people recognize you, and in and in good ways, instead of like they know me as a business owner instead of the person who pulled their teeth.
February 2018, and now it's 2000. Was it?
Was it February? Yeah, it was February.
Yeah.
Or maybe I talked to you in February and we started in March.
I was going to say it was like springtime-ish. So in literally 2 years, you've gone from idea to recognized leader in your community. I mean, Jared, like hats off to you. Awesome work. Less than like 2 years, and what whole new career lined up. Really cool to see. So I'll give you the final word as we wrap up here. Any final word?
I just want to say thank you to you and your team and all that you guys do, because really gave me the support and confidence that I needed just to get started.
It is, I can't say this heavily enough, but it is an incredible honor to be doing it side by side with you and seeing what you're accomplishing with your values, your hard work. Many, many good things to come, my friend.
Yeah, it's exciting.
All right. Thank you, Jared. Talk soon.
Yeah, thank you, Jayme.